Welcome to Zero to Hero, the series where we teach you how to teach yourself how to play Pokemon VGC, from the basics to the complex. Today's topic is moves. Moves are like actions that your Pokemon can take. They're also referred to as attacks. There's over 500 moves in game, and many Pokemon can learn a wide variety of them. But each Pokemon can only have 4 at any given time, so choosing the right ones is quite important. Let's go over the basics of a move. Moves all have a unique name. Like Pokemon, they also have a type. Moves will also have a base power, a category, accuracy, and secondary effects. Moves essentially make up the offensive side of the type chart, and Pokemon make up the defensive side of it, since the Pokemon is getting attacked by the move. Moves can land in one of 3 categories: physical, special, and status, designated by these icons. Physical and special moves deal damage and have a base power. The higher the base power, the more damage the move will do. In general, about 80 base power is considered good, 100 or higher is very strong, and less than 70 is relatively weak. Base powers with a dash are a variable and depend on some other circumstance, like Pokemon weight or speed. Status moves don't have base power because they don't deal any damage. Instead, there's a wide array of other effects like inflicting status conditions, boosting or lowering stats, or changing the battlefield. Moves also have accuracy. Many moves are 100% accurate, and they will hit their target when used. Some moves have lower than 100% accuracy and will sometimes miss. If a move misses, it does nothing, making low accuracy moves risky. Any move with a dash means it bypasses accuracy checks and always hits regardless of stat raises or abilities. In competitive Pokemon, accuracy is huge. 80% in many things usually sounds pretty good, but 80% accuracy is pretty low. Even moves with a 90% accuracy can be unreliable. Lower accuracy moves often have high base power or other strong effects. Moves also have power points. This is the amount of times a move can be used in a battle. It rarely comes up in VGC, so don't stress about it too much. Lastly, some moves have secondary effects. Some secondary effects are guaranteed, while others have a percentage chance to occur. Let's look at some examples of moves. Moves often have a progression of power level like the following. Venusaur can learn Vine Whip, Seed Bomb, and Power Whip. These are all physical grass-type moves, and they have gradually increasing base power. Moves with low base power, like Vine Whip, are really made for low-level Pokemon early on in playthroughs, and as you level up your Pokemon, you get better moves and end up forgetting about these weak ones. Stronger moves like Seed Bomb and Power Whip are both seen in competitive play. Seed Bomb is the safer option with 80 base power and 100% accuracy, while Power Whip is less accurate but has a whopping 120 base power. Picking your moves even comes down to the nitty-gritty of deciding between 2 similar ones. Venusaur can also learn special moves that have a similar power scaling. Let's look at Magical Leaf, Energy Ball, and Leaf Storm. As you can see, they have increasing base power just like the physical moves. In this case, they also have secondary effects. Many moves like Energy Ball have a small chance of causing a secondary effect. In this case, a 10% chance to cause a special defense drop on the target. Moves like Leaf Storm are incredibly powerful with 130 base power. But to balance this, it has 90% accuracy, so sometimes it will miss, and when it does hit, it will lower the user's special attack by 2 stages after use. Some types tend to lean more towards physical moves or more towards special moves. For example, types like Steel, Fighting, and Rock usually have a wider array of physical moves, and types like Ice, Electric, and Fairy generally have better special moves. But most types have good options for both physical and special attacks. A quick look at Electric, we see Wild Charge as one of its best physical moves, compared to a strong special move, Thunderbolt. Same base power, but Wild Charge has a negative effect in recoil damage, while Thunderbolt has a positive effect to potentially paralyze your opponent. There are also more special electric moves than there are physical electric moves. If you want more base power than Thunderbolt, Thunder is an option. There aren't really any physical electric moves over 100 base power that are widely accessible. So why would you ever use moves like Seed Bomb over Energy Ball, or Wild Charge over Thunderbolt? There's 2 main reasons. Mainly is a Pokemon's stats. Physical moves use a Pokemon's physical attack stat to do damage, and special moves use the Pokemon's special attack. Most Pokemon usually have a higher physical or a higher special attack stat, and they'd prefer to maximize one stat rather than trying to use both. We'll go more in depth on Pokemon stats in another guide. Second is availability. Different Pokemon learn different moves. Take Goodra for example. If he wants to use a grass move, the only 2 he learns are Power Whip and Absorb. Absorb is super weak at only 20 base power, so Power Whip is really his only option for a grass attack. Last but not least is something called the same type attack bonus, or stab for short. This also isn't really mentioned in game. When a Pokemon uses a move that is the same type as itself, it gets a 50% power boost. Comparing Goodra to Raichu and Venusaur, Goodra can learn Power Whip and Thunderbolt, but if you use them, they would only be their 120 and 90 base power respectively. But if Venusaur used Power Whip, its base power is effectively 180, and Raichu's Thunderbolts are essentially 135 base power. As you can see, stab makes a huge difference. Goodra would need to use a dragon move, like Dragon Pulse, to get a stab boost. So if Goodra were to use Dragon Pulse, its power would be boosted from 85 to 127. When a Pokemon uses a move that is a different type than itself, it's often referred to as a coverage move, since it's covering other types its stab moves might not be able to hit. Sometimes an attack can critically hit. The chances for this to happen are 1 out of 24, or just over 4%. When a move critically hits, it will do 50% increased damage. It will also ignore the target's defensive stat increases, and it will ignore the user's offensive stat decreases. Some moves have increased critical hit rates. Other items, moves, and abilities can affect your critical hit rates as well. Let's go over a few examples of different effects moves can have before going over status moves. A couple categories of moves that are relatively common are pivoting moves, things like U-turn and Volt Switch, which will deal damage and then switch the user out. Recoil moves will deal damage to the user based on how much damage was dealt. Moves like Wood Hammer and Flare Blitz are common. These moves often have very high base power. Many high base power moves will reduce the user's stats after dealing damage. Moves like Close Combat will lower both of the user's defenses, and moves like Draco Meteor will lower your special attack. Some moves have increased or decreased priority. We'll get into priority in the speed guide, but the gist is, if a Pokemon uses a move with high priority, it will go before a Pokemon that is faster if it's using a move that doesn't have priority. Next, spread damage is very important to know in VGC. Spread moves are moves that hit more than one target, either things that hit both opponents, like Dazzling Gleam or Rock Slide. This also includes moves that hit your opponents and your partner, moves like Earthquake and Surf. In double battles, spread moves have their base power reduced by 25%. So Earthquake has 100 base power, but if it's hitting more than one target, actually only hitting them for 75 base power. Similarly, Dazzling Gleam has a base power of 80, but if it hits more than one target, it will only deal 60 base power. If there's only one target left on the field, these moves will have their full base power. Onto status moves. Status moves don't deal damage, but as mentioned, there's a wide variety of other effects. We'll go over a few examples of status moves. Some will inflict status conditions like Will-O-Wisp or Thunder Wave. Others will boost your own stats like Dragon Dance or Swords Dance. Some will reduce your opponent's stats like Eerie Impulse or Scary Face. Some moves can heal yourself and or your ally, like Recover or Life Dew. Protect and Detect are moves that prevent you from taking any damage for the whole turn. Moves like Tailwind and Trick Room are very common in VGC. Tailwind will double the speed of all Pokemon in your team for 4 turns, and Trick Room will reverse the speed order for 5 turns, making slower Pokemon act first. You can set weather or terrain with moves like Sunny Day or Grassy Terrain, and there's also entry hazards with moves like Stealth Rocks or Spikes that damage your opponent whenever they switch in. Weather and terrain setting moves aren't used that much in VGC as there's abilities that set these for free on switch in, but you do see the weather move sometimes. Entry hazards are also incredibly rare in VGC, as games are very fast paced and you don't get the same value from them as you would in a single battle. Redirection moves force both opponents to attack the user. This is very useful to protect a frail Pokemon to get off lots of damage. There's such a wide array of status moves that it's impossible to describe them all here. There are some moves that are referred to as signature moves. These moves can only be learned by a select few Pokemon. Moves like Wicked Blow, Sacred Fire, and Blood Moon can only be learnt by Single Strike Urshifu, Ho-Oh and Entei, and Blood Moon Ursaluna respectively. As you can see, signature moves are often very powerful. Wicked Blow always crits, Blood Moon has huge base power, and Sacred Fire has a very high burn chance as well as a high base power. Keep in mind when picking moves on your Pokemon, which Pokemon have signature moves, because they're often better than their non-signature counterparts, so if you have access to them, they're usually pretty strong. A great website to check for more details on any given move is cerebi.net. It gives you all the information like the base power, the elemental type, the category, the accuracy, the power points, its secondary effect. A lot of moves also have different types, is a bit of a misnomer, not an elemental type, but different type of move. For example, some moves can be biting moves like Crunch, some moves are punch moves like Thunder Punch, and some moves make physical contact like Close Combat. All that information is shown here. That's it for the move guide. Thanks for watching.